Following a recent vote by the Wareham School Committee to close Minot Forest, major waves are in motion that will determine the future of Wareham students. Joining me in this discussion about closing Minot Forest and what's next is Dr. Kimberly Shiverhood, the Superintendent of Wareham Public Schools, and Joyce Bachi Archie, a member of the Wareham School Committee. Welcome.
Thank you.
So let's start with the good news, and that is the Massachusetts School Building Authority Board has voted to support Wareham's elementary school project. So what does this mean?
Well, that means that we now will move forward with the design will continue, and we will move forward to educate the public, working up to a vote on a ballot in November.
Okay. So by closing Minot Forest, I hear that roughly about 100 students will be moving to Dickus Elementary, and also there are some kids that are going to be housed, well, pre-K to second grade are going to be in Dickus, third grade to seventh grade are going to be at Wareham Middle School, and then seventh grade to 12th grade are going to be in Wareham High School. So there are a couple of concerns. One of them is transportation. People feel that it's going to be very crazy moving all these students. And another one is people are worried having young kids such as third graders with seventh graders in middle school. How can you put their feelings at ease?
Well, first, the transportation issue. What will happen will be we'll stay on the elementary schedule. So high school and 5th, 6th, 7th graders will start at the regular middle school, high school time. 3rd grade, 4th grade will be on a separate time schedule, and then 5 minutes or about 8 minutes later, Dickus will start. So there's going to be a delay because we've heard the same concerns, and we want parents to know that, you know, there's a delay with all the traffic coming into Viking Drive, as well as if you have a child in one elementary, you're still going to have time to get over if you drive them. So we've adjusted those needs. With the seventh graders and 6th graders, they're in a separate area of the building. 5th grade is also moved away from 3rd and 4th, and 3rd and 4th will have their own wing at the middle school. They really don't need to go any place further than just the main office. They'll come in the main lobby doors, and then they'll just shoot right down to their classrooms. Everything else is fairly accessible without having to cross over. So we do not anticipate 5th through 7th graders really having any contact at all with 3rd and 4th graders. As well, we've kept Minot as a whole. So the Minot is going to operate as a elementary school in the existing middle school. So they're still keeping their school number, they still have their administration, clerical, teachers, everything is Minot Forest Elementary. It's just merely relocated.
Okay, very good. Now, why was it important to close Minot Forest prior to town voting, fully committing, saying that yes, we want a new elementary school?
Well, unfortunately, there was a budget shortfall this year, and that is why Minot Forest was closed. It wasn't closed because we're hoping to build a new school there. It was closed due to a budget shortfall. And so this was the solution that we came up with. Now that it is closed, we will save some money and some time on the construction of the new building, but it was not closed because we are hoping to build a new school.
Okay.
I know that's a misunderstanding maybe that's out there, that some people believe that, so it's important to let them know that's not the case.
Okay.
And the other thing I would share, you know, we've heard rumors circulating that we're going to reopen Minot. Minot is not going to house students again. We made a decision based on our finances, based on keeping teachers in front of students, and at this point, we're going to continue moving forward.
So, in order to save money, and are you concerned at all that people, if this works, dividing the grades, pre-K to second grade in Deacon's, third grade to seventh grade, Wareham Middle School, and then high school with the rest of the students. If this scenario works, are you concerned that voters are going to look at this and say, oh, well, we do not need a new elementary school. We are saving money and we have the schools and the system is working.
We have heard that rumor as well. What I would tell you is Deacon's building, the internal workings, desperately need replacement as well. This building project is combining the two elementaries into one. So we're not going to be going back to the public in 5 years saying we would like you now to consider rebuilding Deacon's or do a new build there. It will take both elementaries and combine students into one larger elementary. This is a temporary measure. We're doing this with hopes that the community will realize that our students deserve a facility that supports their educational needs, and we believe our students are certainly worth this investment. We also, because of combining the schools, it freed up the Minot spot to do a rebuild there on that footprint, and that's, as Joyce said, saves money and saves time.
Okay. Now, there are still many who are opposing the new elementary school.
Mhm.
They say we do not need it, okay? We say we cannot afford it. What do you say to that population whose argument is just as strong as those who are for a new elementary school?
So I would like to say that those are just the people that we haven't reached to educate yet. And that is definitely, going to be our push going forward, is to get out there and educate in as many ways that we can.
But I feel like you guys have been very thorough. What do you think is missing?
I really feel like there are a lot of people who don't understand the project. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was speaking to someone who didn't know that we were replacing 2 buildings and, combining it into one. And that really made me realize that we have a lot of education, a lot of that to do with the community.
Okay.
And I would welcome anyone to contact us with their questions. We'd be happy to sit down with groups, invite us to coffees, invite us to different places where we can share why. We also would be happy to give you tours of the building. We will have students in the building this summer. We certainly would welcome the community members to see the conditions that our students are attending school in.
Okay. Now, I read in Wareham Week, I believe, that about 30 positions will be cut with closing of Minot Forest. If so, what are these positions? Are we talking about teachers or other positions such as maintenance people?
Well, we did make staff reductions this year. We were very fortunate when we were making the staff reductions that we had a number of resignations not fortunate about the people leaving, but with the positions that we were able to eliminate through resignations, through retirements, that we were able to keep our class sizes. Right now, our class sizes are in the low 20s to mid 20s, which we're very happy about. Had we not made the decision to close Minot, our class sizes would have been significantly larger. So through just watching how the resignations were going, the retirements were going, we were able to eliminate positions through that and not eliminate people as much.
Now, what are the pros, apart from saving money, of dividing the kids up, having pre-K to second grade from Minot to Deacon's and third grade to seventh grade, Wareham Middle School, 7th to 12th at Wareham High School? What are you hearing from students and teachers? Are they excited about this?
Well, I think change is hard for everyone.
Okay.
And so, our Minot family, they're losing their home. So that was a very difficult experience for them. However, their new home has multi-plugs in their classrooms. The lighting is much better. The facility overall is in much better condition. So I think once they get adjusted and are welcomed into their new home, things will be much happier.
It wasn't an easy decision, it wasn't an easy vote. When you say pros, it's.
I thought maybe kids will be excited to see their friends,
Mhm.
to be with their friends next to them and so forth.
Well, like Dr. Shaver had said, the
Mm.
third and the fourth grade, they are staying together. So
Okay.
that is definitely a pro. And the pre-K is going with the first and second grade,
Yeah,
which makes sense for them.
okay. We are continuing our talk about closing Minot Forest Elementary and what's next. So as you noticed, we have had a change of guests. We have now Mike McMillan, the school business manager, here to talk about money. Money, money is the hot topic. People, for those who want a new elementary school, yes, they want it, but it's going to cost money, and that is also the argument those who are not for it look at, that it's going to be very expensive. About 86.8 million, if I'm correct, the new elementary school is projected to cost.
So the total, the current cost of the project, which was presented at the meeting with the selectmen earlier this week, was around $90 million.
$90 million.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
That's the total cost for replacing both schools.
All right. So let's start. Elementary schools this expensive. Can the price be negotiated down?
So we have, so because it's going to be a big elementary school, so obviously the bigger it is, the more expensive it is.
Okay.
But also the MSBA, the Massachusetts School Building Authority, which is the state body which is providing a substantial part of the costs for this building, they look at the costs per square foot of the building.
Okay.
And the cost per square foot of the building we have so far compares very well with other elementary schools that have been built recently, and is less, in fact, in some similar projects which recently finished. So we are working with we have hired construction professionals, we have a project manager and design architects on board, and we are working really hard with them to keep that cost per square foot down. And that's looking at the materials we use, the design of the building also, so minimizing the square foot, so looking at how you use the building so you maximize usage. So if you're a corridor, you're seeing what uses you can have for that corridor. So you're keeping the size down and then keeping the cost per square foot down.
Yes.
And that all helps. But when we went on yesterday we went in front of the Massachusetts School Building Authority's board, and we were amongst several other districts up there to get approval for the project to move forward. And part of the discussion there was exactly what you referred to, that $90 million. In fact, of all the schools up for renewal, up for approval at our stage, we were the lowest price. But some of these are high schools,
Yeah.
and they're in the $200-300 million range. So, although it seems like a lot in comparison to other districts, it's not, in other schools, it's not as high. And one of the comments there that one of the board members said is, even 10 years ago, it was a lot less. But the costs in construction have gone up so much recently, that's really driving an increase in costs.
So it's not like we are planning a big fancy building here, it's just a basic building and this is the actual cost of it.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, all the key decisions, the school building, there are a school building committee which Wareham has set up. So we have a committee which oversees this project, and that has selectmen and school committee members and teachers and members of the community, and all these people meeting regularly, and they're making the key decisions on the project. And all the key decisions so far, the decisions they've made have helped to keep the price down. So for example, the design we're looking at is a 3-story design, so it's got 3 floors, and that helps to save money because that keeps the floor print smaller, so that the site, so the outside side of the size of the building is smaller because it goes up rather than out.
And that
also
was
reduces
interesting because there's this beautiful chart here.
Yeah.
And to me, it looks like the cost of building a 2-story building was much cheaper than a 3-story building.
Depends. So I'm not sure exactly which options you're looking at. So what I can tell you is we looked at 17 different options in total and different grade configurations, and so it depends slightly on what grade configurations that includes. But when we came down to looking at the options, once we got close to the end of the design, we were looking at, for the same number of students in the same design, a 2-story versus a 3-story. The 3-story was cheaper per square foot, so that helped to reduce the cost.
So the 90 million is the final price?
No, because we're not quite there yet. So at the moment, we've only got we've only reached, it's called schematic design, so it's kind of like the first cut of the design, and there's a lot more work to go on, and that will be, looking at the actual, like the colours we use, the design inside, what the classrooms will look like, the furniture and so on. And then even once that's done, we then go out, so we will get a final figure, and that'll be available when we go to the town meeting in the fall, and then hopefully the ballot in November. And then, of course, we go out to bid on all this, and so all these contracts have to be bid out, and we'll hope that that will then further reduce the cost.
Okay.
But yeah, so around 90 million is where we are right now, and we're hoping to keep it there or even go lower over the next few months.
All right. You mentioned November elections, and voters will be voting on this as a ballot question. The debt exclusion would raise taxes on residents to pay for the project for the life of the debt.
Yeah.
How different is this from Proposition 2.5? So
an override just increases your tax base forever. So once it's in place, it's there permanently. However, debt exclusion is linked to a particular project, in this case obviously a new school, and it only lasts for the time of the debt. So once the debt's paid off, then the rate would return to where it was.
Okay.
So it is time limited and it's project specific.
Okay, time limited and project specific. How much tax increase are we expecting, or is it too early?
It's a little bit too early. So we need to just finalise that figure. So it's going to be around 90 million. But then also we need to decide with the town how long they want to borrow for.
Okay.
Because how long they borrow for will also determine what the rate is. So obviously it's like if you get a loan yourself. So if you pay over 15 years, you're paying more a month than if you pay over 30 years. So it's just like that. We would have to discuss the pros and cons with that with the town treasurer and the town administrator to work it out, and then that will determine the impact for individuals. So I don't want to put a number out there and then live to regret it when it's different from what we think our assumptions we're making now.
Yes.
And also we're still working with the architects, so a key part of this project, and the main reason we're here is because the school building authority is going to reimburse a lot of this expenditure. So they will reimburse it's now almost 75% of allowable costs. So that's not the total cost of the project.
Allowable costs.
Yeah, so there are some costs they say they will reimburse, and there are some costs they say they will not reimburse.
What are the costs that they will not reimburse?
So, for example, they have a maximum that they will reimburse for site work, for the preparation of the site. And because Minot Forest is on a slope, it's a little more difficult because we've got things like they will not reimburse for asbestos. So we have asbestos in the building, so all the, that has to be handled very carefully. So all the abatement of all that asbestos and the disposal of it, they will not reimburse us for that. So there's things like that in there which they don't reimburse. Okay. For different reasons, they want to put pressure on us to keep costs down. So that's why they say they only reimburse up to certain amounts. So that does put pressure on us. But then costs increase in the construction industry that we don't necessarily have control over, and the MSB doesn't increase the amount they'll reimburse us as those costs increase in the construction industry. So there's a whole lot of things that go on there. But just try to remember the numbers we presented to the selectmen on Tuesday had the district's share of that $90 million, just about 39 million.
Yes.
So that's a little higher that's a little, so it's definitely higher than a quarter, but still a lot less than 100%, which is what we'd have to pay if we did not have this grant from the MSBA.
Okay, and how, if the project moves, if people vote for it, how soon do we expect that reimbursement?
So the way it works is we don't actually, so we were just talking about this, so we don't actually, it's not like vans turn up with suitcases of money. So what happens is we set up an account with the town, and essentially what happens is we contract with vendors to provide the services, and as we get bills, we pay the bills, and then we send the bills to the state, and they give us the money back for it.
Okay.
So, and it's a rolling process. So you pay for something, you have short-term borrowing with the town
Yeah.
to pay for it. We get reimbursement, and eventually we do the long-term borrowing, which is what the debt exclusion pays for, the long-term borrowing when we know the total cost of the project
Okay.
that we are responsible for.
All right. And when we get reimbursed, is that money goes back to the school?
Well, no, it
Schools
goes to the
or
town.
to the town,
School,
okay.
school never really sees it apart from on our computers, you know, we never, so the money, the town spends the money, and then it goes to, it goes to the town to pay off that money, and then the town borrows for the remainder of the cost, whatever has not been paid for by the MSBA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's kind of a rolling basis, so we never get, it's not like, we don't get a check for $60 million, sadly. We just get it in bits and pieces, you know, we get it as we go through the project.
I read that fixing Minot, yes, it's going to be cheaper than building a new elementary school, but also it was said it's not going to be a financially sound choice for the residents of Wareham. May you explain why we should opt from fixing Minot and building a new elementary?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. I mean, the crucial part is that we're not just replacing Minot, we're replacing Deacon's as well. So, and at some point, I think as the superintendent alluded to earlier, at some point we're going to have to fix or replace or repair the Deacon's
well.
significantly. So we're kind of looking at both those scenarios. The issue that was raised about Minot and the meeting with the selectmen is that Minot, the current design of Minot doesn't meet with its sort of modern educational security and accessibility, so it doesn't do enough. The repairs wouldn't be sufficient to really bring us up to code, make us secure and accessible, and also meet our education plan. And so partly the issue is that would then make it less likely for the Massachusetts School Building Authority to provide a grant. So if we go down that route, there's a risk that it's just Wareham paying for it.
Okay.
So we're just as we're updating an old building, which has a lot of problems with it, which doesn't meet our education needs. And we now then have another project down the road at some point to do something about Deacon's. And once those two things are put together, that's why the school building committee that looked at this thought it was not the best way to go for the district.
So it's a hard pill to swallow, but just swallow it now and be done with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, and really it's, these costs aren't going away, so we can choose not to do this, but the town can choose not to go down this route. But there's going to be costs, things like the elevator. So the elevator at Minot is on its last legs, so at some point that would have had to be replaced.
Mm.
And especially, it's funny because we do talk about, well, could you just repair these things? But it's hard to replace and fix things like an elevator in a school around you. It's one thing to do it while you're building the school from the bottom up, because people say, well, it's the same cost, but often repairing a building can be more costly than building a new one. Because building a new one, you start with a blank sheet and you build as you need it, but you're trying to replace a boiler in a cramped space. You've got to take windows out, you've got to abate asbestos, you've got to do lots of things. It's not like just putting a boiler in a new building when it's been designed for it. So, yeah, it's tough, but I think in the long run, it'll definitely benefit the students and people aware of them.
Okay. Superintendent, would you say Wareham has a choice but to approve a new school?
Absolutely. The voters have a choice.
Okay.
It's our goal to provide them information that they can make an informed decision. We certainly hope that they support our students and support our community.
I appreciate you seeking to be here and to inform the voters and to explain more thoroughly about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you to
Thank
both
you.
of you.
Thank you very much.
The design to approve the new Minot Forest Elementary will be submitted to the state for approval on June 27th. So you have plenty of time between now and the next town meeting to inform yourself and make the right decision, because the future of Wareham students depends on your vote. Thank you to our guests again, Dr. Kimberly Chavoho, the Superintendent of Wareham Public Schools. With her today is Michael McMillan.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad I pronounced your name correctly there. And from WCTV Studios, I am your host, Queen Banda, and I wish you all a wonderful day. Bye.